Thank you, Ronnie. Miss Terry Bain is leading Children's Church in the month of May. So if you want to join them in Children's Church, you're welcome to do that. I'm very proud that our church is involved in the Gideon Bible Ministry. We are routinely as individuals, sometimes as a church, marking the passing of a loved one, a member of our church or a member of one of our family members, with the purchase of Bibles that will be read by lost people and that will read the Word of God around the world. When I was a member at the Oak Park Baptist Church, we had 6 or 7 men there in the church who were in the Gideon ministry, and I had always loved it, always led churches to be a part of that. But I found out that, I learned a whole lot more about Gideons because of their presence in our church during that time. And I'm glad that we are participants in that ministry right now because it takes the Word of God around the world, all around the world. We are a part of that. But here at Walnut Grove Baptist Church, we have people who work in the medical field. We have people who work in some way in health care or in the distribution of health care or have worked there. And so we're blessed with a number of people, and a number of them are here this morning. We have a good representation this morning. And there may be some of you who have even, do they still call them candy stripers? Does that even exist, folks, anymore? It used to be actually I think they were probably exclusively young ladies, but they would have an outfit, nursing outfit, or a helper. They were special, but they would help on the floor. But they would look just like a candy stick, just like a candy or candy stripe. But there are all different kinds of helpers these days, and technicians, people who are assistants, people who are doctors, nurses. Danny and I, when you and I on Saturday, we saw someone that said X-ray tech on their back of their car, on their license plate. X-ray tech. Miss Paula Besley has visited us a number of times here. I don't know if you got a chance to meet her, but she spent many years at Decatur General Hospital as an X-ray tech. I said she's the only the church member or one of my church members who had seen my insides more than anybody else, and she still loved me. Next Sunday, we're going to be celebrating all of you who have had something to do with the medical field and medical technicians. If you can be here, we want to make a fuss over you. We want to recognize you and let you tell us a little bit. We're not going to put you on the spot or embarrass you, but I would love to learn a little bit more about what you do. But our cornerstone of next Sunday will be that Carrie Leanne Ward is receiving her degree this month. And she has already received several notable awards for her achievement in nursing. And Danny has told me that she had not, when they became acquainted with Carrie, that she had not graduated from high school. She was not in school. But she has gone back to school herself, and she's earned her GED, which is just an amazing feat. And then had gone on to nursing school in college. And she's going to receive her degree. I think that she's worked some with Carice at West, or in conjunction with West. But, and I don't know how any of you get to work with or for or around each other or in the same place or field. But we're going to be making a presentation and recognizing Carrie next Sunday. So come, we want to do that. I'm looking forward to that. I'm very excited about it. And if there's anybody you know, you have a nursing friend or someone who is a doctor or a technician, there's just, now, we've joked a lot of times. My dad had to be in the hospital a lot in his last few years. And anybody that came in, if he could figure out, they might even be just from the records department, or they might be someone who worked in giving breathing treatments or something like that. He'd ask them questions about his gallbladder, and boy, it didn't matter what field they were in. He felt like if they were in the hospital and worked for the hospital, they ought to be able to answer his question. Could I get something for pain? He was always a question. You know, I'm just here to take some of your blood, Mr. Bain. That's all I do. Well, how's my blood doing? He says, I don't even look at it, Mr. Bain. I just take it and take it to the lab. That's my job. So Daddy thought, that would aggravate him. But boy, I like I think I saw something on Carissa's Facebook page. I'm going to try to find some of these. You help me find them. It says, I can't do a lot of things for you, but I can sedate you. I can sedate you. So, some of you probably are not really good patients when you're in the hospital or you have to go to the doctor or the clinic. But they have ways, we have ways, as I say, of dealing with you. I'm looking forward to that next Sunday. Well, here we are. It's Mother's Day today. And, you know what? I've been missing my mom for a long time. The part of her that seemed to be the most vital part and the most lively and joyous and wonderful part of her got slipped away a long time ago. Have you ever seen that? You ever been in part of that? And, I know that she's with the Lord right now, and I miss her. But I tell you what, if she just come back, if I could have her come back and just lay in that hospital bed, I would do it. So, I've seen there are many people who have never had the privilege of being a mom or having a child. There are some who've lost their mother, and their mother's already gone away. Maybe some people who never knew their mom. And so there's lots of different kinds of situations that might make Mother's Day, or Father's Day, a good or bad kind of celebration. Is there some memory that you've been thinking about, something that's come to your mind today about your mom, whether she is here or about or gone on? Is there something that you could share with us today? Something that you could share that on a personal line about your mom or a mom? Something you've been thinking about, something that's been on your mind?
Our mother raised us in church. She made sure we went in church. Sunday school every Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, every night during revival. And I appreciate the way she raised me. She made us mind. We got out of line, she had ways to get us back in line. I really missed her this morning.
It's your first Mother's Day too, isn't it? She passed last year. I know you do miss her. Anyone else? Something you've been thinking about, Mom?
Well, Brother John, the thing that always stuck out for me, Mom and Dad bought the house I grew up in, and shortly after that, Dad went on strike. So there were a couple of days when we didn't have any food. Mom wasn't too shook up. My mom started praying. And she never got the prayer completely finished. One of our neighbors had come to the door with a pot of soup or a pot of chili or something like that. And it impressed me as a kid to see my mother get her prayers answered. And even as a kid, this thought popped in my head. I want to know my mother's God. Because if my mom can get her prayers answered like that, maybe it'll work that way with me. And
that's a wonderful memory. Thank you. It's a wonderful memory. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Anything else? All right.
We'd always go down every creek days, and Ronnie's parents and my mom and dad. Those were wonderful people. And I miss them all. But to me, it's just like yesterday.
It's a good memory. Thank you, Betsy. I've seen some of you, some of you have lost your parents since I've known you. It's a difficult thing. It's good to have good memories, though. Henry said something that I guess we've all heard. He said, if Mama's not happy, ain't nobody happy. So it's always good. I remember times when Mama was happy. Everything was right with the world. It really was. Anything else? All right. We're glad to have Carter home from school, and so is his mama. Let's look at His Way, Part 4. This is the last of this series. His Way, My Way, Part 4. It's really kind of like a continuation of last Sunday's message. Last Sunday I talked with you about the roadblocks of God, that when we're going our way, when we're doing things our way and making our own choices and doing what we prefer to do without even considering the way of God, God has a way of putting people in our way. He brings people to us. Paul was headed to Jerusalem. Now, we looked last Sunday night, or Sunday night before, I guess it was, that Jerusalem, we see that on the day of Pentecost, that 3,000 people were baptized. Later on, it said 5,000 men became believers. But this is only a few years later. Now, Jerusalem was evidently a church with thousands of people in it. Imagine that they didn't have pews, but if they'd had pews, there'd not only be someone sitting in all the pews, but they'd have chairs down the aisle and people looking in the windows from outside. But then during this time, only a few years later, Paul is busying himself traveling around to other Christian churches, and he's trying to receive an offering to take back to what he calls the poor saints at Jerusalem. You know, every once in a while you'll see about a church, even a great church. Do you know that the great Crystal Cathedral that I grew up watching about on television, that it has closed its doors and they've sold the church property? That happens sometimes. The church at Jerusalem didn't have thousands of members. It was the poor saints at Jerusalem, and Paul felt sorry for them because they'd got to where there just was a handful of them, and there weren't very many. As a matter of fact, they had started out on a path of sharing with each other so that they'd all have plenty just by being kind to one another, but they didn't have enough. They needed help, and so Paul saw that was a good thing to do, and he began to tackle it. But just because something's worthy, and just because something's worthwhile, he thought that he could pump a little life or give a little bit of help to the church at Jerusalem, which is the mother of us all, Paul said. It was the very first church. Well, the very first church had grown, and listen, the Bible doesn't say that God had judged the church at Jerusalem, or that they had committed some great sin, and that's why they whittled down and weaseled down to only a few members, poor members at that. It was just a part of what God was doing, and it was just like a person. There's a time when you and I are growing and we're producing, and then there's a time when we're declining and we're getting older and we're wearing out. And our hair is getting thin, and our waist is expanding, and our health is getting worse and worse. It's a part of growing old. Churches do that too. Well, there are many things in your life. There are many things calling to you. There are many things that are whispering in your ear. It might even be you. A lot of times you might think it's the devil, but I don't think the devil even knows my name. You know, I'm not sure the devil's got me on his list. All he has to do to get me all twisted up is just to send some little bitty peon that works for him to me, just to aggravate me a little bit. But what I think in the heart of every Christian, clear, it's the kind of thing that your mom wanted to drill into you and wanted to teach you by example, and for you to see in her life is the way of God, the ways of God. This is God's way of doing things. I guess over the years I've been probably accused of being a kind of his way or the highway kind of guy. Well, in one sense, I guess I'll own that claim, because I want to be able to, at all times, to tell you that my way, I want it to be God's way. Not that I want to find me a way and say, here, God, put your hand of approval on this. But I don't think anything's worth doing, and I don't even want to commit my energies to doing something or my commitment or my dedication. I don't want to appoint myself to the accomplishment or even the attempt of anything unless I feel like it's what God wants me to do. And so yes, if I feel, I've been wrong. I've missed God's way when I thought I had it. I've misunderstood God sometimes. I don't know the perfect and absolute mind of God. But I have found out, listen, let me tell you this about pastors and about ministers, leaders, Christian leaders. It's your responsibility as church members. If you ever are able to come to the conclusion, if you ever come to the conclusion that your pastor is not leading you in God's way, that your pastor is not in touch with God or that he's not in fellowship with God, then you need to fire him. I mean, don't think about it a lot. You don't have to have an uprising, or you don't have to get together and have a big controversial church split, because I think that would be obvious to all of you. And I've encouraged people, look, either find out if you think I'm following God. If you think I'm following God, then follow me. But if you think I'm just trying to do things my way, not only don't follow me, but have the courage to fire me. Fire me. Well, I hope we learned something about firing folks from our president. That's what he's famous for. You're fired. Listen, folks, I'm not kidding with you. I've known a lot of preachers. I've known a lot of preachers. And I just walk away. It's not my job because I'm not a member of their church. And I'm thinking, I don't know how that guy got a job. I don't know why in the world would he be in that position. If I was a member of his church, I'd fire him. You're fired. But listen, ministers, leaders, Christian leaders, they're not perfect. Listen, you find you one. You find you one. If you feel like he is committed to doing ministry God's way, then follow him. Now listen, if you find, something else, kind of meddling a little bit. This is not even in my notes. This kind of crept in. If you ever find yourself and you're a member of the church and you are deeply convinced and you believe that this conviction comes from the Spirit of God, that your pastor or your spiritual leader is out of the will of God, but for some reason, most everybody else in the church seem to think he's okay, then you need to find you another church. Don't put up with that. Don't put up with that either way. I believe it's always going to be obvious when a minister is out of the will of God, when he's off the reservation and he's doing his own thing. Fire him. But if it seems like he's somehow enamored or entranced or mesmerized the rest of the congregation and they don't see it, don't you stay there. Don't you stay there and let your spiritual life, your Christian life, be damaged by someone who is leading you away from God. Don't put up with it a minute. If the church don't see it, you need to go. That's what I do. That's what I do. All right, let's look at this. Go to the next slide there. All right. As I said, I ended with this slide last Sunday, the hard way. The hard way. I'm talking not about catching knots. Let's go on. Let's review these verses. First, he says first. Now this is first. He said this is first. Thank God for all of you. And look at verse 10. My prayer is that God's will for me to come to you will be accomplished soon by a prosperous journey. Now that's the book of Romans. He said it's God's will for me to come to you, Romans. God said, God wants me to come to Rome. All right, now let's go and look at the next. It's the last few verses in the book of Romans, in chapter 15. He says, but now wait a minute, you said first. Well, let's do first things first. Do you do first things first? Or you say first, but now, oh no, let's not do any now. Let's do first now. Let's not do something else now and then do first when we get done with it. Let's do first. Now I'm going to Jerusalem to minister to the poor saints which are at Jerusalem. Listen, Paul the Apostle was the greatest Christian probably who's ever lived. He's not going to be able to pump any life into the church at Jerusalem even though he did take up evidently a very good offering. We hear about that offering in several of Paul's New Testament books. Because as he was going to church, from church to church, he would write them a letter. And he told the Corinthians, I'm headed your way. Have your offering for the poor saints of Jerusalem. Have it ready. I was going to pick it up. He said, I'm going to send Timothy to some places to get your offering. The poor saints. There was no way they could be revived. As a matter of fact, on Sunday nights 2 weeks ago, I've been in a lot of churches in the land of Israel. I've been in a lot of churches in Jerusalem. And I've worshiped in there on the Lord's Day. And you cannot find a church, a Christian church in Jerusalem these days, today on the Lord's Day, that probably has more than 25 or 30 people in attendance. It's the birthplace of Christianity. It's where Jesus died for us. But if you were to go to Jerusalem to find out how's the church doing, you'd feel like it was a failure. But if you went to China and slipped around and got into the dark and went down into somebody's basement and see all the hundreds of people who had gathered there secretly and illegally and privately, you might be convinced that the Church of Jesus Christ was going through the roof, because that is what it's doing. And he says, this is why I want to take up an offering. It may help me create favor among unbelieving Jews in Judea. When the saints of Jerusalem see my service, they may find it acceptable. You know what that means? Paul says, I'm receiving this offering because he says, I want them to like me. I want them to like me. I like to be liked. But you know what I'd rather sometime? I'd rather you fire me. I'd rather you fire me. All right, let's go on. Acts 21:14. Follow the story. God had put up some roadblocks for Paul. He sent him some people and said, don't go. Don't go to Jerusalem. Even a man, a prophet, he said, named Agabus. There's some other verses in the book of Acts about Agabus. And Agabus came up and said there's going to be a drought for about 3 years. And he says, guess what? There was a drought for about 3 years. Agabus came up and said, don't go to Jerusalem. They said, don't take your guns to town, son. Leave your guns at home, son. Don't go to Jerusalem. But when he would not be persuaded, we ceased, saying, the will of the Lord be done. Has anybody ever looked at you and said that? Man, they've put your head under their arm, and they've done you like that, and they've knocked on your head, and they've shook you by the shoulders, and you've wagged your finger in their face, and they're standing there going, like that. There's going to come a time. Mamas, have you ever done that with your kids? Have you ever come to a place where you say, okay, listen, I've tried to do my best to be your mom. I've tried to do my best to be your daddy. I've tried to give you good advice. I've tried to raise you right. But the will of the Lord be done. Now that sounds great, doesn't it? The will of the Lord be done. Have you ever had the will of the Lord done in your life? Sometimes it hurts like the devil. Have you ever done what your mama wanted you to do? That ain't always fun. Have you ever done what your daddy wanted you to do? That ain't always fun. That's the reason I had kids. So I could tell them to do stuff. We was at a wedding this week, and every time I'd see one of my kids, I'd say, go get me a cold drink. Go get me a bag of chips. I'd sit there. Then they disappeared. I didn't see them for a long time. I think, no, I'm not going over there. That's where Daddy said, it's in you have something. Where's Teresa? She's telling Brian what to do. Yeah, that too. We got a little niece. She wasn't getting married yesterday. She came in, and her other came in behind her. He's always like that. And he was saying, where do you want me to sit? And I said, hey, man. I was fixing to take away his man card. And I said, hey, man. I said, why don't you just go out here, look at all here, go and sit someplace that you think would just aggravate the stew out of her. Just go do that. And the next time I looked up, raised up my head, looked there, and he was sitting over here beside of her, not even where folks are supposed to be sitting. She had a job. She's supposed to be signing the guest in, and there I just walked away from her. I said, no. The will of the Lord be done. The will of the Lord be done. If anybody ever says to that, that's not a prayer of blessing. That's a curse. You look at them kids. We love them, don't we? Turning you over to the Lord. See how you like that? You thought I was tough to get along with. You thought I was rough. You know, I'm going to tell you what. You had some friends like this, didn't you? I had some friends in high school. And boy, they didn't want to do nothing. They didn't want to do nothing their mom and daddy said. They didn't want to do nothing Coach said. They didn't want to follow no orders. I don't want anybody telling me what to do. I don't want anybody giving me no advice. I want to go where I will go, and I want to do what I will do. You know what I'm going to do? What do they do, Andy? I'm going to join the Marines. I'm going to join the Army. Well, you dummy. And they did, too. And then we got a call back from the Army. Ooh! And the Army didn't want them, and they didn't want the Army. Yeah, I tell you what, if you got a boss you don't like, or somebody's telling you what to do all the time, and someone who's forcing you around, I tell you what, why don't you join the Army? You'll see the world. Isn't that what the recruiters used to say? Come see the world. Yeah, you will. It'll be like Afghanistan. I had a friend, he said, see the world. He said, Vietnam, that's where they sent me. The will of the Lord be done. Somebody that loves you is going to say that in your presence. You're going to say, well, there's somebody who loves me. Not necessarily. And after those days, we took up our carriages. We went to Jerusalem. Oh, man. All right, let's go on. Then Paul took me in the next day, purifying himself. Now, that's a Jewish ritual. Not very Christian. Himself with him and entered into the temple. This is when he hit town. He came into Jerusalem. He's purified himself to signify the accomplishment of the days of purification. That's not a Christian thing. That's a Jewish thing. Until an offering could be made, offered for every one of them. Guess what? He's going to go have some animals killed for him and his traveling companions in the temple. That ain't a Christian thing either. It's real religious. It shows a lot of dedication, a lot of commitment. Boy, he's really gone nuts. When the 7 days were almost ended, the Jews which were of Asia, when they saw him in the temple, stirred up all the people, and they laid hands on him. They laid, and bad things started happening. Bad things start happening. You know what? When bad things start happening to me, you know what I think? God, help me from these bad people that are treating me bad. God said, yeah, I sent them. I sent them to lay hands on you. Guess what? God, I'm in trouble. People are after me. God said, yeah, I sent them to get you. Y'all know Deborah Harry? Bonnie? Get you. You know that song? Get you. God said, yeah, that's right. But you're praying. I'm going to get you. Crying out, men of Israel, help! This is the man that teaches all men everywhere against the people and the law of this place, and further brought Greeks also into the temple and have polluted this holy place. Okay, let's go on, Carter. For they had seen before him in the city Trophimus, an Ephesian, whom they supposed that Paul had brought into the temple. Well, they didn't do that. And all the city was moved, and the people ran together. And they took Paul and drew him out of the temple, and forthwith the doors were shut. And as they went about to kill him, tidings came to the chief captain of the band that all Jerusalem was in an uproar. I like the way it looks. By the way, sir, captain of the general city of Jerusalem is in an uproar. Well, let's go. Who immediately took soldiers and centurions and ran down unto them. And when they saw the chief captain of the soldiers, they left beating of Paul. Say, oh, that's all right. We just tenderized him a little bit. That's all right. Then the chief captain came near and took him and commanded him to be bound with 2 chains. Well, you know, Agabus was just a little bit off. He said he took 1 belt and 2 chains. It's worse than he thought. All right. and demanded who he was and what he'd done. There's only one thing he's done. He hadn't broke the law. He hadn't taught against the law of Moses. He hadn't violated the temple. There's only one thing he's done wrong. He's got a good idea. He's just trying to help. He's brought an offering for the poor saints of Jerusalem. He's a good guy. He ain't done nothing wrong except one thing. He's disobeyed God. He's disobeyed God. When you disobey God, he's like your daddy. He's even worse. He's like your mama. When you disobey your mama, do you think it's just your mama that's unhappy? You're going to find out when you disobey your mama that the whole world doesn't love you anymore. Because, friends, when you get to the place, sometimes I believe people have looked up and said, you know, the only person in the whole world who loves me is my mom. What have you done? Well, let's go on. We know what he's done. Then said Paul, I stand at Caesar's judgment seat where I'll be judged. Let me translate that for you. I messed up. That's not as easy to say as it sounds like. I messed up. I need to be judged. I've done something wrong. I messed up. To the Jews, I've done no wrong. You know very well. For if I be an offender or have committed anything worthy of death, I refuse not to die. But if there's none of these things whereof these accuse me, no man may deliver me unto them. And he says, I appeal unto Caesar. Boom, bang. Door came shut. Boom, just like that. I appeal to Caesar. It don't matter what they think about him anymore. It don't matter what he's done. It don't matter what this fellow decides to do. He says, I appeal to Caesar. Those are like magic words. Here's what these words say. Take me to Rome. You gotta take me to Rome now. Then Festus, what a great name for a king. I can see with that hat on, bandana, dirty old clothes, that vest, hadn't shaved. That's who that is. Festus, when he had conferred with the council, answered and said, hast thou, he said, wait a minute, did you appeal to Caesar? Unto Caesar you shall go. Boy, he was so glad. He was so glad. All right. You know, old Pilate, he tried to send Jesus to Herod. Send him to Herod. That's who he belongs to over there in Galilee. Boy, no, we're going to send you to Caesar then. Let's go on. Here are the travels of Paul. When we last kind of looked at Paul, he was kind of over here in Corinth, remember? There he is right there, that golden line. Oh, look right over there. Look right over there. It's Rome. And there's Corinth. You know what? He was moving in that direction. There it is, Rome and Corinth. He could have swam. But here he goes. But then this red line picks it up. As soon as he got in Jerusalem, they laid hands on him. Guess where he's going? He's going to Rome. When you and I are doing our own thing, we may find out that in order to save us, continue to save us, or to help us, or to guide us. Let's go to the next slide there, Carter. We've got to go the hard way. We've got to go. Paul figured it out. So I got it. I'm supposed to be going to Rome. Wonder what I could do. He didn't have to wonder. What could I say? He didn't have to wonder what. He just said, I tell you what, excuse me, calm down, everybody be quiet. I appeal to Caesar. Instantaneously. It's got to be done right now. He's a Roman citizen, and if a Roman citizen ever stood up, even if he was just accused of putting a piece of candy in his pocket, it didn't belong to him, they're taking that dude straight to Rome. He's going to stand in front of the emperor. That's his right. That's his right. You know, that's not only his right, that's God's way. That's where God wants him. That's where God wants him. I think that's the last slide. Click it again, Carter, just to confirm. Yeah. All right, close that out here. I want to connect it to the day and also the last Sunday. We preachers, we want you to, I'm always want to get in your way, get in your face. I want to stir you up, I want to aggravate you. Because, listen, some of you, many of you, maybe all of you, look at my leadership and say, oh, I wouldn't do it that way. I wouldn't do it that way. But I'm convinced of a way, and I believe the reason I'm here is to say I believe this is God's way. You know what the Old Testament says? There is a way that seems right to a man. You can look at other people and you say, I can see how he ought to be doing something a different way. If I was him, I would do it a different way. There is a way that seems right to a man. But the proverb writer says at the end thereof are the ways of death. Friends, I don't spend my time whiling away trying to figure out what I would like to do or what would make me happy or what I would enjoy. Now, I don't always obey God, and I don't always know what God's thinking. But I do spend 100% of my time when I'm thinking about what I should do, asking God to show me what does He want me to do. What does He want me to do? I mentioned the song last week because I believe there are lots of people that God wants to put in your life. One of them is a pastor. One of them might be a parent. Might be your mom. I mentioned a song that maybe you heard when you was growing up. And there's some of you young people, though, probably never heard it. There's a video on their car called Mama Tried. Let's watch it. You don't know who this guy is. Won't you?
Okay.
Crank it up. That's why we got speakers. It's supposed to be real loud. Louder than that.
First thing I remember knowing was a lonesome whistle blowing and a young dream of growing up to ride on a freight train leaving town, not knowing where I'm bound. No one could change my mind, Mama tried. The one and only rebel child from the family meek and mild, my mama seemed
That's the hay.
school.
That's what
Despite all my son learned, toward the bad I kept on turning, till Mama couldn't hold me anymore. And I turned 21 in prison, doing life without parole. No one could steer me right, but Mama tried. Mama tried, Mama tried to raise me better, but bleeding 99, that leaves only me to blame, 'cause Mama tried.
Okay, set that one down, Carter. Now, when I was a young fellow, when I was a little boy and heard my mom play that, I didn't know. When I heard him say I turned 21 in prison, I thought that was what he was in prison for. That was his sentence. But no, that means he woke up one day in prison. And guess what? It's his birthday. And he's 21. I turned 21 in prison. You know, I met some people like that. I know some of y'all have too. Mama tried. She said, in spite of all my Sunday learning towards the bad, I kept on turning. In other words, I had a good foundation. I had good teaching, but I made the wrong choices, the wrong decisions. Aren't you grateful for somebody? I sang that song in prison. They loved it. They loved it. Because none of them had a mama that wanted them to be there. Mama didn't say, you know, when I raised you, I wanted you to be in prison one day. No, they didn't. Not one of them. There's somebody in your life who's tried not to get you to, you think there's somebody in your life, they're trying to get you to do things their way. There's probably somebody who's been in your life trying to get you to do things God's way. It may have been a godly mother. You know, in 1970, we had a song that was Mama Tried. It was a different version. I want to introduce you to that. I don't know if you've ever heard it. Find out something. Mama Told Me. This is our version of Mama Tried. Turn it up a little bit more.
Want some whiskey in your water, sugar in your tea. What's all this crazy question you're asking me? This is the craziest party that could ever be. Don't turn on the lights, cause I don't want to see. Mama told me not to go. Oh Lord, Mama told me not to go. couch in this room. I think I'm almost choking from the smell of stale perfume. And that cigarette you're smoking about to scare me half to death. Open up the window, sucker. Let me catch my breath. Mama told me not to
Okay, that's enough of that, too. Mama told me not to come. You ever been to that party? I've been to that party before. Mama told me not to come. Mama told me not to come, but here I am. I will have to say, I didn't raise a couple of goody two-shoes, but every once in a while my son or my daughter would call us and say, I'm going over to such and such. I thought you was going to that party. Yeah, I went there, but I think I'd better go somewhere else. Because there was a few parties my son went to that wound up in the newspaper. And he wound up in court over just as a witness as to what went wrong. That's enough of that, I guess. But she said, that ain't the way to have fun, son. Mama told me not to come. Well, I've had that go through my mind before. Do you have a mama like that? You had a mama like that, but thank the Lord for her. You think she's just trying to boss you around, get you to do things her way? Not one bit. You know what we would call it, what we say about it in Alabama? We say, she just wants you to do right. She just wants you to do right. And don't go where you don't belong. Don't be who you're not supposed to be. Do things God's way. Or you know what? The hard way. And you're going to think the devil's after you, but he ain't. You're going to think you've hit a patch of bad luck, or things are not fitting together. Things are not working out for you. You're going to kind of think, well, I'm just having some bad luck. You might be doing things, you might be headed to Rome. The things that you think of the most awful things in your life may have come straight from the hand of God. Because you know what? He is the author and the master of the hard way. Just ask old Jonah. He rounded up in Nineveh. Let's pray for just a minute. Heads are bowed and eyes are closed. Where's your life? What's it like? How are things between you and God? Has God put people in your life and they want to help you? All you can see is they've been standing in your way. And they've been down on you. They've been thinking all the negative thoughts about you. And you think that all they do is they just don't love you as much as they used to. They're probably just like your mama. And what she would say to you is, son, daughter, do things God's way or it's going to get hard. Your mama's not going to be able to spank you anymore, make you stay in, take your phone away from you, make you stand in the corner. She's not going to make you write sentences. All mamas kind of get to the place where all they can do is just say, well, the will of the Lord be done. Son, daughter, I can't do anything. I've tried. Mama's tried. Daddy's tried. Your friends have tried. Your pastor's tried. I'm just going to have to turn you over to the Lord because I can't help it. I can't help it, but God can. Mamas are never going to give up on you. Daddies might. Some daddies do. Friends do. Pastors, they give up on you. They say, you know, I got other people. I got other people to talk to. I can't spend my whole life trying to persuade you. I got to do other stuff. The will of the Lord be done. That ain't always a good thing. Father, I want to thank you for your will, your way. Teach us your way. Stand in our way when we're not. Lovingly lead us and guide us. We ask you, Lord Jesus, in your name. Amen. Brother